Hey there, everyone. Here to just give you another quick little review of a book that I've just finished reading, and hopefully it might give you an idea of whether you might also want to read it. So the book in question is Devil House by John Darnielle, and you can see here that I got it out of my local library. Of course, support your local libraries, please. So this book is, it's 400 pages or so. And as I've mentioned before, length is sometimes a bit of an issue. I'm a bit of a slow reader. Sometimes my attention wanes as I'm reading, so it can be a bit challenging, especially when it's a bit longer. And I would say this is a medium to easy difficult read. It really depends on who you are and what you like reading, how much you've read, and all that kind of stuff. But it's not necessarily sort of a genre or quick pulpy read or anything. It's sort of more of a literary novel, and I think that's what Darnielle was setting out to write here. I say that because definitely when I first heard of it, I thought perhaps it was sort of a genre style horror novel, which in fact it's not. So don't let the cover fool you too much. It is a great cover, of course, but needless to say, many of you might know John Darnielle is the main guy, singer, songwriter, main force behind the band The Mountain Goats, who have, of course, a huge cult following. And he's in the past several years made his breakout into writing fiction, writing novels. And I noticed that on the back of this particular one, there's a blurb for one of his earlier novels, which I have not read, Universal Harvester, from Kazuo Ishiguro, Nobel Prize winner and all-around great writer. So, I mean, that's a pretty big flex for John. So, Devil House, is it worth checking out? Is it worth reading? As I said, it's not a genre piece. The sort of very brief high-level summary is that it's about a true crime writer whose modus operandi, if you will, of writing his books is to really literally inhabit the place that he's writing about. So in this case, there's a house where some murders occurred in the 80s, and so he moves in and he starts sort of trying to get into the vibe of what that house must have been like when the murders took place. So it's kind of an interesting concept. As he's reconstructing what would have happened, several decades back in this house, and it also goes into a little bit into his career as a true crime writer and some of the other books that he's written about. And very quickly, the novel gets into the notion of what true crime writing really kind of is, what it means to the writer particularly, but also to the people who've been involved, whether it be the perpetrators of the crimes or the victims of the crimes, or the townspeople in these small towns where these crimes, well, in this case, fictional crimes take place. And I think his project is really to sort of investigate from different viewpoints what that all means. So it does become a bit more of a philosophical project than just a straight bit of storytelling. And in fact, he shifts narrative points of view. It starts out in the first person, and then in the next part, it actually goes into the second person, which is kind of an unusual take for fiction writing, but he does it quite well. He's a strong writer, there's no question. So there's a bit of this sort of back and forth between points of view, and there is one part of the book where, in fact, if I can find it here, he even goes into sort of a very archaic form of writing, complete with a very dense Gothic sort of almost medieval font, which is very, very tough to read, I will say. But that section is quite short, so not to worry. So I would say for the most part, I enjoyed it. For me, it got off to a strong start, and then as I went on and kind of slogged through the different narrative points of view and then the different actual formats of the font, my interest sort of waned a little bit. It dipped up and down, I'll be honest. But I was surprised throughout that it was really not a traditional genre piece at all, and indeed more of a literary psychological exploration, backed up by some very strong writing. So it's never is never dull. The writing never drags his project down. So I would say if you're interested in spending 400 pages on a shifting point of view, thinking about what true crime means, definitely go for it. There was a promise that there was going to be an exploration of the so-called satanic panic of the 80s, where everyone was convinced that music and all sorts of popular culture were convincing kids to become Satanists and commit all these horrific acts of ritual murder and whatnot. And definitely that is explored in here, and it's sort of debunked and revealed layer by layer how that could be so easily misconstrued. There is a lot of the idea of how stories are misconstrued and how the retelling of stories changes them, sometimes for the permanent record, sometimes for history, and who gets to write that history. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, a lot of thinking about that. And to some extent, he does have fun with the details of the teenagers in the 80s with their so-called sort of satanic decorations of the house. I was kind of hoping for a bit more of a lurid, sort of entertaining take on that, because at times I would say this comes across a little bit more academic. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. So I would definitely say that probably if you're a Mountain Goats fan, you probably want to check this book out because of course their music is based on storytelling and sharp details and interesting lyrical turns, things like that. But to no one's surprise, a novel format is quite a bit different than a 4-minute song. So yeah, I hope that helps if you've been sort of on the fence about whether you want to check this book out. And thanks very much for listening. Subscribe if you haven't already, and see you next time.